At Starbound, we tell stories the human way, not with artificial voices or AI slop. I mean, in the end, what's HFY without humanity? Subscribe to keep it this way. My name is the VoiceOgre, and let's begin. The Chiral Dominion gave Solhara 1 hour to surrender. An hour meant nothing on a world lacking a proper day. A planet carved into 3 permanent slices. The sun side, a hellscape of molten rock and vaporized metal. The dark side, a tomb of frozen nitrogen. And the twilight band, the thin, habitable ribbon between them. Here, the sun hung forever at the horizon, a relentless, unblinking god. The people of Solhara measured time by the silent, steady turning of the great heliostat mirrors that fed their city its life. Their patience was forged against a star. 1 hour was an insult. In the heliostat control nexus, a command hub more cathedral than bunker, red alert icons flashed on holographic displays. They blinked in unison, a deliberate choice by the city's founder to prevent panic. Panic bred fatal errors, and on Khonsu, a miscalculation earned a death sentence. The cool, scrubbed air carried the sharp scent of overworked circuitry and the acrid undertone of sweat. The low hum of the city's lifeblood, the massive thermal batteries deep underground, remained a constant, reassuring presence. Jonah, chief heliostat engineer, moved through the quiet command center. His face, illuminated by the shifting tactical readouts, was a study in placid concentration. He was a man of straight lines and right angles, the human embodiment of the meticulous engineering he commanded. He paused behind a young technician whose hands trembled over her console.
Status of the tertiary capacitors, Tilla?
Jonah's low baritone cut through the room's strain without raising its volume. His question held an engineer's need for data, which was a grounding force. Tella took a shaky breath.
Nominal, Chief. Fully charged. All stable.
Good,
Jonah said, his gaze already moving to the next display.
the system behaves as designed. We behave as designed.
He continued his circuit, a calming presence amongst the anxious technicians. He stopped at the main engineering console and looked past the glowing numbers to the armored viewport beyond. Through it, he saw the nearest of the great arrays, the Chen sector, its thousands of mirrors angled toward the star like a field of silver sunflowers. They were silent, patient guardians, etched with the geometric history of the families who maintained them for generations. And they were beautiful. He would now turn them into weapons.
Status, Reese.
He said, his focus returning to the room. The lead technician, his knuckles white on the console, looked up.
Deep Earth reservoirs at 97% thermal capacity, Chief. The salt is molten and stable.
Jonah nodded, and a grim acknowledgement tightened the corner of his mouth.
Good. Keep 'em there. Maintain stability.
That 97% held their secret. From orbit, the Chiral would mistake the heliostat arrays for a quaint, oversized solar farm. They would miss the colossal caverns deep underground where that energy waited as raw, unimaginable heat in a lake of molten salt. The Chiral saw a power grid. Jonah saw an ammo dump. Every screen in the Nexus, every public speaker in Solhara, every private comm unit flickered to life. A broad face, the collar of iron slag, filled the screens, framed by the sterile gunmetal bridge of a warship. His features were flat, and his eyes were dark pits that seemed to drink the light. A nameplate beneath his image read, Warlord Hestra. His voice was a dry rasp, like sandpaper on bone, a passionless monotone that allowed no room for negotiation.
Inhabitants of this settlement,
Hestra began, the word inhabitants carrying the weight of a slur.
by the authority of the Chiral Dominion, this celestial body and the vital substrates in its crust are now and forever the sovereign property of House Hestra. Your unlicensed colonization is at an end.
In a small apartment overlooking the city wall, a family froze, forks halfway to their mouths. In the maintenance tunnels deep below, a crew of mechanics stopped their work, their grimy faces turning up toward a crackling speaker. The entire city held its breath. He paused, letting the sheer arrogance of the statement settle.
You are an obstacle to progress. We are, however, pragmatic. Your lives are a negligible asset, but killing you wastes resources. Therefore, you have one path to continued existence. You will surrender this city and all its infrastructure. You will accept relocation to a designated resettlement territory. Your cooperation will be rewarded with your lives. Your resistance,
He said, his lips barely moving,
will result in your complete erasure from the galactic record.
Another pause.
You have one standard hour to broadcast your unconditional surrender. This communication is final.
The transmission ended. A profound quiet descended upon Silhara. In the Nexus, someone muttered a quiet, vicious curse. The stillness that followed pressed in on them. Every tick of a cooling fan and every distant structural groan became a source of terror. In the soundproofed strategy room 20 meters beneath the Nexus, the future of 80,000 souls rested on 3 people. The air had the texture of dread. Darien paced. He always paced. A former smuggler with the past as scarred as his knuckles, he moved like a caged wolf. All coiled muscle and predatory energy.
1 hour.
He snarled, the words a spray of gravel.
He gives us 1 hour. He offered a death sentence with a grace period, and he called it a negotiation. We should send back a reply written with the guts of his first landing party. Salt the wells. Booby-trap the maintenance tunnels. We make them bleed for every grain of sand. That's a language they'll understand.
Amira stood by the room's single armored slit of a window, a sliver of the twilight desert and the gleaming silver towers visible beyond. She was the keeper of the sun chants, the city's spiritual and moral compass. Where Darien was jagged edges, she was a smooth, powerful current.
And when the dust settles, what will we be, Darien? Kings of a poisoned graveyard? If we fight like them, we become them. We win, and we lose everything worth fighting for.
She turned, her eyes blazing.
The sun is our witness, Jonah. It created us. It sustains us. If we are to fight, it must be our sword, a weapon of honor.
Jonah, the pragmatist, the engineer, stood between them, a bridge between the visceral and the poetic. His mind worked like a flowchart. Option A, Darien's path, guerrilla warfare, high casualties, moral compromise. A potential victory that would cost their identity. Option B, Amira's plea, defend with honor. A likely annihilation against a superior force, but with their souls intact. Both outcomes promised ruin.
A third option must exist,
he said, his calm, measured voice cutting through their heated exchange.
A variable we've overlooked. The Galactic Council. They're toothless, but they're watching. Their charter frowns on wiping out established colonies without provocation.
Darien scoffed.
Provocation? Our existence is all the provocation that they need. The Council will write a strongly worded letter after we're all dead.
Maybe, Jonah conceded.
But we play the game. We show them that we're the reasonable ones. We make a counteroffer. A sane, logical proposal. We put it on every open channel. And when he rejects it, and he will reject it, he will start this fight. The record will show it.
He looked from Darien's cynical glare to Amira's gaze. He thought of Rena, his partner,
lost years ago before the mirror network was perfected, before they had truly tamed the sun. Cooked alive by a focusing error during a solar flare, he had sworn then that the sun, the cold and any iron-faced bastard in the sky, would fail to take his people again. That promise was the unspoken weight behind his every decision. "We try for peace," Jonah said, his voice solidifying the frantic energy in the room into a single point of purpose. "One last time. Then we show them what happens when you corner people who live their entire lives facing a star." He turned to a console. His right hand keyed in a broadcast command while his left drew a connection pathway across the holographic interface. He opened a direct Priority 1 channel to the Chiral flagship. Warlord Hester's face reappeared, this time on Jonah's private screen. The Chiral commander's expression was one of profound cosmic boredom. He looked like a man forced to listen to a fly buzz.
"You are wasting the seconds I allotted you,"
Hestra stated. Jonah's face was calm, betraying none of the roiling chaos in his gut. "Warlord Hestra, I am Jonah, Chief Engineer of Solhara. We are a peaceful colony. We are willing to negotiate. The resources you seek can be shared. So we propose a treaty, a shared access agreement that benefits both our peoples." A brief amusement twitched at the corner of Hestra's mouth. He chuckled, a dry, rasping sound of friction on stone.
"Shared access. Engineer, do you share your home with the insects in your walls? Or do you remove them so that you may live in peace?"
He leaned closer to his camera, his light-swallowing eyes seeming to pierce the screen.
"You are squatters on property you fail to comprehend, attempting to bargain with its rightful owners. Your proposal is an irrelevance. This is your final chance to submit to Chiral authority. Your time is up."
Jonah looked away from the screen for a fraction of a second, his eyes finding Amira's. She stood just behind him, her hand on his shoulder. Her touch was a small point of warmth and absolute certainty in a cold universe. Her expression was serene, resolute. She gave a single, slow nod. He needed nothing more. When Jonah turned back to the screen, the diplomat was gone. The reasonable engineer had clucked out. In his place was something forged in a star's heart. Something cold, hard, and absolute. He leaned into the microphone, his quiet voice carrying the weight of a collapsing mountain. "We decline." He cut the private channel before Hestra could respond. Then, with 3 swift commands, he hijacked the system-wide broadcast frequencies, aiming his signal at the entire Chiral fleet and any council observers listening. Jonah's face reappeared on the main view screens, uninvited. His voice was clear, steady, and rang with chilling, calculated finality. "You chose war. Let us show you how it's done." He terminated the transmission. Consoles across 2 fleets went dark, and in that shared quiet, the war began. Insult was a tactical tool. Humiliation was a personal affront. Hestra, enraged by the public defiance, the sheer audacity of the colonials, felt his cold discipline crack. He wanted to break them, to shatter their spirit.
"Launch the first column,"
he commanded, his voice tight.
"Elite infantry. They will march directly into the central heliostat array. Seize their power grid. Cut the head from the snake. I want to watch their lights go out."
On the sun-scorched plains before Solhara, hatches hissed open. Chiral soldiers, encased in polished, state-of-the-art armor, disembarked and formed ranks with chilling discipline. They were walking tanks, their suits bristling with sensors and weaponry. They advanced in a perfect column, boots crunching on the coarse sand. On their helmet displays, all was green.
Threat detectors remained silent. Scopes stayed clear. The desert slept. The locals were hiding. Pathetic. In the Nexus, Jonah watched their approach on a three-dimensional topographical map, a river of red icons flowing towards the city's heart. Status of the column.
Velocity constant. Arrangement tight. They're confident.
Reese reported, his voice steady now.
They're about to enter the optimal targeting zone.
Jonah's eyes were fixed on the map. He let the chiral column commit, let them march deep into the kill zone, far from their lander's cover. His team watched him, hands hovering over their controls, waiting for the signal. Each person in the Nexus could hear their own pulse hammering in their ears. At the calculated moment, Jonah gave a single, emotionless command. Execute. Across 10 square miles of desert, a miracle of silent engineering occurred. Thousands of multi-ton mirrors, each the size of a small house, pivoted in perfect synchronized unison. They moved without a sound, a slow, graceful, and utterly lethal ballet of polished steel.
Convergence lock,
a tech called out.
Targeting solution is green across all arrays.
Beams of concentrated sunlight, invisible in Khonshu's thin, dry atmosphere, converged. For the chiral soldiers, the universe ended in a silent flash of light. One moment, they advanced on a small city. The next, their world was pain. This was pure thermal energy, a hammer blow from a star. Their armor was designed to deflect directed energy weapons, but this was a simple, overwhelming external thermal load that flash-cooked the state-of-the-art suits. Masterpieces of engineering meant to dissipate the internal heat of their own fusion cores. Threat detectors, calibrated for weapons and not the local star, shrieked a half-second too late. The outer layers of their armor glowed cherry red, then white-hot, then simply sublimated. Coolant systems flash-boiled in ruptured conduits. Ammunition cooked off inside magazines, turning armored soldiers into walking bombs. The warriors inside incinerated before their synapses could process the agony. The disciplined advance dissolved into a screaming rout. Soldiers in the rear watched in horror as their comrades in front simply vanished in bursts of incandescent light and puffs of superheated vapor. Survivors scrambled away, dragging friends whose armor still popped and hissed like fat in a skillet. From the walls and observation towers of Solhara, the people watched. They saw the unthinkable. They saw the iron fist of the chiral dominion melt and run. A ragged, uncertain cheer began, then swelled into a defiant roar that echoed across the desert. They had won. They had bloodied an empire's nose. Jonah watched the smoking, blackened husks littering the sand and felt a cold pit open in his stomach. His team's faces, slack with initial shock, hardened into a grim, horrified understanding. He looked at the heliostat arrays, the beautiful, intricate mirrors etched with their families' histories, the Ibarra array, with its pattern of interlocking cranes, the Chen sector, its surface a network of stylized sunbursts. They were art. They were their culture. They had just turned them into a weapon that annihilated with terrifying effect. He had proven his point. Now the enemy would adapt. Phase 1 was complete. His mind now moved to Phase 2. The countermove. The true fight, he knew. The one for their souls had only just begun. Aboard the chiral flagship, the Hegemony's Reach, Hester watched the recording of the disastrous assault for the 10th time. The knuckles of his right hand were white where he gripped his command chair's arm. His left hand was clenched so tightly that his glove's reinforced fabric creaked in protest. This was an insult to the very concept of a weapon. A weapon had a signature, a detectable energy profile.
They used a sculpture as a weapon, Skane.
Hestra seethed, turning to his intelligence officer.
It is an offense to warfare itself. It is cheap.
Skane, a reedy Chiral from a lesser house, swallowed hard.
Warlord, their method is crude but effective. They're focusing solar energy. Our armor cannot withstand a sustained thermal load of that magnitude. It's like using a fire hose to fight a man holding a blowtorch. The sheer volume overwhelms the dissipation capacity.
Spare me the thermodynamics lecture, Skane,
Hestra growled.
I need a weakness. Find a crack in their rustic little society. A political faction, a religious schism, a personal grudge. I don't care if it's a dispute over a stolen shovel. Find me a lever, and I will shatter them from within.
Skane scurried to his console. His fingers tapped out search queries, their movements swift and certain. The Chiral Dominion kept extensive records, not just of military intelligence, but of the grimy, profitable data streams that flowed through the galaxy's black markets. Shipping manifests, criminal records, intercepted communications, everything was a commodity. Everything was a potential weapon. Less than an hour later, Skane returned, his face pale but alight with discovery.
Warlord, we have something. We cross-referenced the Solhara settlement manifest with data purchased from the Corvus Syndicate. We have confirmed a match. A man named Darian.
A file appeared on Hestra's main view screen. It showed a grainy image of a younger Darian, his face hard and cynical even then. The file listed his previous occupation, independent freighter captain, a known syndicate associate, a smuggler.
The Syndicate provided us with his old emergency comm frequency.
Skane continued, his voice gaining confidence.
It's an archaic, encrypted back-alley channel, designed to be untraceable, but our technicians can slice through it. He has a history, Warlord, a history that we can use.
Hestra allowed himself a thin, cruel smile. The engineer had his mirrors, but the warlord now had a scalpel. To remind the humans of their place, to sow terror where defiance had taken root, Hestra deployed a single, sleek Chiral flyer. Its mission was simple: a low-altitude strafing run against the city's agricultural terraces, the delicate, glass-domed structures clinging to the city's outer rim. Destroy their food, let them starve in the dark, even as the sun blazed overhead. The flyers screamed toward the city, a black dart against the perpetual twilight, its engines a high-pitched shriek promising death. In the Nexus, silent visual alarms flared to life.
It's too fast! Too low!
A tech shouted.
The main arrays can't track it in time.
Jonah's jaw tightened. He knew this was a weakness. The heliostats were powerful, but slow. Hammers, not scalpels. But a new voice cut through the comms. Amira. She had ascended to the highest observation tower, a spire of white stone overlooking the city. Her voice, amplified by the city's broadcast system, echoed over the streets and plazas. A song, a command. She began a sun chant.
Breath of sun, shard of sky.
Her voice rang, a fast, complex rhythm, a staccato pulse of ancient poetry.
Forge the lens to blind the eye.
Across Solhara, citizens heard the chant. For a moment, fear. Then, understanding. They grabbed what they had, polished decorative plates from their walls, hand mirrors from their tables, shards of reflective steel from their workshops. They ran into the streets, angling their small mirrors towards the sun.
Pulse as one, a single beat.
Amira chanted, her voice the metronome, the focusing key.
Burn the shadow with your heat.
At each beat, thousands of citizens flashed their mirrors skyward. The effect surpassed a simple strobe. For a microsecond, guided by the chant's rhythm, thousands of tiny mirrors acted as a single, coherent, city-sized parabolic dish. The resulting pulse of focused energy, invisible and instantaneous, slammed into the Chiral flyer. It was a coherent blast of solar power. The pilot, a veteran of a dozen campaigns, never screamed. His entire forward sensor suite, visual, infrared, LiDAR, flash-fried, cooking into slag by a wave of pure energy. The craft's flight computer, suddenly blind and deaf, suffered a catastrophic failure. The sleek flyer spiraled, its engine screaming, and slammed into the dunes a mile from the city walls. A plume of black smoke marked its grave. Before a Chiral recovery team could scramble, Darien moved.
Team Scav, on me!
He yelled into his private comm channel. He led a small, grim-faced team of farmers and mechanics from a hidden gate. A single large heliostat, the Abara array, swiveled to target the space between them and the Chiral lines, creating a curtain of blinding glare that would fry any observer's optics. Under this light cover, Darien's team swarmed the wreck. The air smelled of superheated composites and burnt wiring. They used pry bars to wrench open the buckled hull, the shriek of metal a victory cry. They returned less than an hour later as warriors. They dragged salvaged armor plating, power cells, and most importantly, 2 fully functional plasma repeaters and a crate of ammunition. They now carried the enemy's own steel. In the deepest part of the false night, a hidden comm buried in the wall of Darien's small farmhouse chirped to life. The encryption signature was one he had seen a decade ago. A ghost from a life he tried to bury in Khonsu's red sand. A syndicate channel. A command channel. The message was text only, on a tiny, grimy screen. Greenhouse 7, outskirts, alone, now. Darien felt a cold dread snake up his spine. He slipped a long, wicked-looking knife into the back of his belt and moved silently through the sleeping city. Greenhouse 7 was a shattered ruin, its glass panels destroyed in an early bombardment. Inside, the air was still and cold. A figure materialized in the center of the dome. A high-fidelity, life-sized hologram of Warlord Hestra. The projection was so perfect, Darien could see the faint lines of condescension etched around the Warlord's mouth. His holographic eyes pinned Darien in place.
Darien,
Hestra said, his voice the same dispassionate monotone from the broadcast.
formerly captain of the Void Wanderer, contracted by the Corvus Syndicate. Your last registered cargo manifest lists agricultural equipment. The Galactic Council's manifest, cross-referenced from a custom seizure on Terran 4, lists 112 unregistered sapient life forms. Political prisoners sold to the mining guilds of the Epsilon Indi sector, specifically children. The penalty for trafficking is summary execution.
Darien's blood ran cold. He said nothing. His hand rested on his knife's hilt, a useless gesture against a ghost of light.
Your city is doomed.
Hestra continued, his tone matter-of-fact.
But I am a pragmatist. I value a tidy outcome. A prolonged siege is untidy. You will help me expedite the process.
The offer came next. A poisoned dart aimed at the one soft spot in Darien's cynical soul.
The Keeper, Amira. I have seen your file. I have seen how you look at her. A weakness, but perhaps a motivation.
Hestra's hologram stepped closer.
Subtly sabotage your mirror network's coordination. Feed me targeting data for their command and control nodes. And when the final assault comes, I will personally guarantee her extraction. Imagine her, Darien. Somewhere safe. Somewhere the sun is gentle, her warmth. Somewhere she can sing her songs in peace. All because you made one simple choice.
He let the offer hang in the air.
And if you refuse, when your city falls, I will broadcast your slave-running details to every survivor before I have them spaced. And I will make sure that the Keeper is the last to die. Her death will be a public spectacle. Her death will be your legacy.
The hologram leaned forward, its voice a venomous conspiratorial whisper.
You cannot save them all, smuggler. But you can save her. Choose.
Guilt was a poison, and love was the only antidote Darien knew. He would burn the galaxy to protect Amira. He agreed. His first act of betrayal tasted like ash. Jonah, ever the perfectionist, ran a calibration test. He wanted to align the old, massive cargo sails, relics from the colony's founding still in synchronous orbit, into a single coherent beam. A proof of concept for a long-range orbital weapon, targeting a distant asteroid. Darien was tasked with verifying the alignment telemetry from the orbital relays. A simple, tedious job. A perfect opportunity. With a few deft inputs, he corrupted the data stream. Introducing a delay was an amateur work. He subtly altered the parallax data for a background star that the system used as a tertiary reference point. A tiny, almost insignificant angular deviation. To the system, it was a rounding error. Over thousands of kilometers, it was a catastrophic miss.
Ready for firing solution,
Jonah said from the Nexus.
Darien, confirm telemetry lock. Telemetry is locked in green, Chief.
Darien replied into his comm, the lies sticking in his throat.
Looks good from here. Fire on my mark,
Jonah commanded.
Mark!
In the dark above, the three vast reflective sails, each a kilometer wide, pivoted. They caught the sun's raw, unfiltered light and focused it into a lance of pure energy that streaked across the blackness. It missed the target asteroid by 100 kilometers. The beam, still coherent and terrifyingly powerful, nearly vaporized a friendly communications satellite before it dissipated into the deep black between systems.
Damn it!
Jonah's voice cracked over the comm.
Signal lag, or maybe solar flares are messing with the ancient orbital relays.
He sighed in frustration.
It's a good catch on the initial data, though, Darien. You probably kept it from being an even worse miss. Scrub the test. We'll recalibrate and try again tomorrow.
Darien watched him on the monitor. Watched the brilliant engineer curse the very phantom he had created and praise him for the failure. His stomach was a cold, hard knot of self-loathing. The sabotage was working. It was destroying him. Amira felt the change in him like a shift in the wind before a storm. The cynical armor Darien wore had become a cage. It was distant, his eyes darting from hers, his touch fleeting and cold. Their easy, sarcastic banter was gone, replaced by a brooding, oppressive quiet. She found him in their small home, staring out at the ever-present sun. His shoulders slumped with the weight she couldn't see.
A shadow is on you, Darien, she said softly. A new one.
He didn't turn.
Everyone has shadows now.
Well, yours has a different shape, a different weight. Talk to me.
He flinched as if burned. The truth would destroy her faith in him, the only pure thing in his life. The lie was meant to save her. Desperate to protect her from the knowledge of his own monstrousness, he pushed her away. He turned on her, his voice harsh and bitter.
What's there to talk about, Amira? We're going to die. That tin pot god in the sky is going to send his whole force for a decapitation strike on the Nexus, and then it's all just over. You happy now? Maybe you should be making your peace instead of psychoanalyzing me.
His words were cruel, designed to wound. But one phrase snagged in Amira's mind. Decapitation strike. A cold, formal military term. The kind of language the Chiral used. The kind of slang a smuggler like Darien would never say. He would say, cut off the head of the snake, or go for the brain pan. The phrase was a wrong note in a familiar song. It terrified her more than his anger. She recoiled, her eyes wide with a confusion deeper than hurt. He saw the look, mistook it for simple pain, and stormed out, leaving her alone in the quiet of their home. The seed of a terrible doubt had been planted. A chill settled deep in her bones. Hestra, acting on Darien's intelligence, saw his opportunity.
The informant confirms their fighting capability vanishes without the sun,
He announced over the bridge crew.
Their mirrors are useless. We will launch a full-scale ground assault under the cover of the planet's shadow.
Khonsu had no night. It did have the colossal shadow cast by the planet itself. The chiral forces would attack from the dark side, crossing the frozen plains and striking Solhara from its most vulnerable, unlit flank. The chiral ground column advanced in the crushing, absolute darkness. Their night vision optics turned the frozen landscapes into a ghostly green world. They moved with confidence, their victory all but assured. But Jonah, anticipating just such a move, was ready. He had spent his life fighting the darkness as much as the heat. As the chiral forces approached the city's edge, Amara's voice once again sounded over the city's speakers. This time, a deep, resonant hum. A single, powerful note. At her signal, hidden shutters ground open at the base of the heliostat towers, and Jonah discharged the batteries. The molten salt reservoirs, the city's hidden ace, unleashed their stored thermal energy. They unleashed it as power. Raw gigawatts flooded into massive high-intensity lamps built into the towers. The light bounced and focused from the lower rings of the mirror arrays. Night was obliterated. In an instant, the frozen plains were bathed in a searing artificial noon, brighter and harsher than the real sun. The chiral column, their sensitive night vision optics instantly fried, was thrown into chaos. Soldiers clawed at their helmets, screaming, their vision replaced by blinding white agony. From hidden irrigation ditches and behind barricades of salvaged plating, Darien's scavenger teams opened fire. The crackle of their captured chiral plasma repeaters tore through the disoriented ranks. "They're breaking through the Chen sector!" a runner screamed into the comms. "The Ibarra array is taking heavy fire!" The family names etched into the steel had become their battlefield map, their history a living part of their defense. The chiral raid, built on a foundation of lies, was repulsed. A bloody, humiliating fiasco. Aboard the hegemony's reach, Hestra's composure finally shattered. He swept a holographic display from his command console with a furious roar, sending tactical icons scattering like frightened birds. Farmers, poets, and engineers were outmaneuvering him. His flawless military reputation was being tarnished by a bunch of sun-worshipping colonials and their glorified magnifying glasses. His brittle, monstrous pride curdled into pure sadistic rage. Strategy was abandoned for malice. He ordered several farmers captured in the field raid to be brought to the edge of the chiral lines within the city walls' sight. He had them executed, one by one, their bodies left in the open desert as a message. When a private communique arrived from a Galactic Council observer vessel, politely expressing concern over his methods, Hestra dictated a curt one-word reply. "Acknowledged," then deleted the message. The Council could watch. He would break these people no matter the cost. His tactics devolved from deliberate operations to the pure cruelty of a bully. Hestra wanted his tool to remain sharp. He sent a private drone feed of the executions directly to Darien's hidden comm unit. He wanted the smuggler to see the consequences of failure, to feel the leash tighten. Darien watched the small, grainy screen, his hands shaking. He saw the captured farmers, their faces defiant even in death. He saw the chiral soldiers, impassive and brutal. And he saw Hestra, observing from his lander's command deck. The warlord's lips curled in a slight, satisfied smile that chilled Darien to the bone. In that moment, the carefully constructed self-delusion Darien had built crumbled to dust. Hestra was never going to spare Amira. A man who enjoyed this cruelty would never honor a deal with a traitor he despised. He would use Darien, bleed him dry of information, and then discard and slaughter everyone, taking special pleasure in Amira's death. His betrayal, his sin, his agonizing choice, it was all for nothing. His actions would only make the end more horrible. He had sold his soul to hand the woman he loved to the monster himself. The final assault was imminent. The air in the Nexus was electric with grim purpose. Jonah coordinated the final defensive placements, his voice a steadying anchor in the storm of preparation. Amira found Darien by the western wall, checking a captured plasma repeater's charge. The strange, cold phrase he had used echoed in her mind, a dissident chord. A few hours ago, monitoring captured low-level chiral comms for troop movements, she had heard an officer use that exact sterile terminology. She came to him, her face a portrait of sorrowful certainty. "Darien," she said, her low, steady voice cutting through the noise of the coming war. "Where did you hear it?" He failed to look at her, his hands fumbling with the repeater's power cell.
Hear what?
Decapitation strike. That's their word. It sounds wrong coming from you.
Darien froze. His knuckles were white on the weapon's stock. He had been so careful, but in a moment of pain and fear, the monster's voice had slipped through his own lips. The game was up. He sagged against the wall, the fight draining from him, replaced by a crushing absolute shame.
He has my past, Amira,
he whispered, the words ragged and broken.
Everything. The syndicate, the trafficking, the things that I've done before. Before you. He promised. He promised that he would get you out, and he would save you.
Tears streamed down Amira's face, hot and silent.
And you believed him? You believed a man who rains fire on our homes, who would keep a promise to a man that he despises?
She knelt before him, taking his face in her hands, forcing him to meet her firm gaze.
You thought that you could save my life by sacrificing my soul?
He finally broke, a sob tearing from his chest.
I had no other choice.
Her expression hardened, not with cruelty, but with purpose.
The price for this sin is your life, Darien. I do not ask that you die. I ask that you give your life to us now, in service. Atonement is earned through action, and you will begin right now.
They walked into the heliostat control nexus together. Every eye turned to them. Jonah saw them approach, a frown creasing his forehead.
There's no time for a domestic dispute, you two,
he said, his voice sharp with stress.
He was their informant,
Amira said, her voice ringing with clarity in the sudden quiet. A collective gasp went through the room. Jonah took a single, menacing step forward, his face a thundercloud of betrayal. His fist clenched.
Ye son of a bitch!
He looked ready to tear Darien apart. Several technicians moved with him, their faces contorted with rage.
And now, he is our greatest weapon,
Amira continued, holding her ground between the two men, a shield of calm in the storm.
Hestra fed him their entire battle plan, a plan built on every lie that Darien told him.
Jonah stopped. The rage in his eyes finally gave way to a cold, dangerous calculation.
Explain, now.
Darien, broken and humbled, finally met Jonah's eye.
He's arrogant. His pride makes him believe that I'm still his. so he'll assume that you found me out and cast me aside. He'll refuse to change the plan now. That would be an admission that he was wrong.
He spoke, his voice gaining speed as he fell into the familiar rhythm of tactical analysis.
He thinks our main power conduits run under the West Plaza. It's an easy target to sever our connection to the thermal batteries. He thinks our orbital relays are still out of alignment. He's coming for the Nexus, expecting to cut the head off of a crippled snake.
The dam of guilt broke. The confession poured from Darien, a torrent of tactical gold. Every piece of false intel he had fed Hestra, every lie about their capabilities, every invented vulnerability. He laid out the entire Chiral battle plan. The technicians who had been ready to kill him now listened with rapt attention, their anger replaced by a dawning, terrible, beautiful realization. The city's greatest weakness, the traitor in their midst, had just handed them the keys to victory. They knew exactly where Hestra would strike. They knew his arrangements, his objectives, his expectations. They knew his mind. United by a desperate, fragile, and utterly furious purpose, they prepared for the final assault. The full weight of the Chiral assault force descended upon Solhara like an iron tide. Hestra, abandoning his flagship's safety for the visceral thrill of the kill, led the charge in his personal armored lander. His objective was simple: a brutal decapitation strike. Smash the heliostat nexus, shatter their command, and watch the city die. The battle erupted, a chaotic, desperate symphony of light and thunder. Focused beams of sunlight, guided by operators who knew exactly where to aim, carved through Chiral armor like a divine scalpel. Chiral plasma bolts, fired at phantom targets Darien had invented, turned whitewashed walls and empty plazas to slag. And in the streets, the fighting was brutal and close. Citizens, farmers, technicians, artists, they fought for their homes and families with scavenged weapons and a courage born of desperation. They fought under the names of their ancestors etched on the mirrors above.
Hold the line at Chen Sector! The Abras are holding! Divert power to them!
As the ground battle raged in a desperate stalemate, Jonah played his final card. The one he held back. The one Darien's sabotage had almost ruined.
Amira! No!
He yelled into the comm, his voice raw.
The Great Chan!
From her observation tower, now scarred by plasma fire, Amira's voice rose. Slow, powerful, and resonant. The verse of creation, a chant every child in Solhara knew. The command to awaken the giants. In the silent black of high orbit, the three ancient cargo sails, forgotten relics, began to pivot. Their vast reflective surfaces, each a kilometer wide, caught the raw, unfiltered light of Khonsu's star. They were calibrated tools. Guided by Jonah's furious work and Amira's song, they were gods of war. Lances of solar energy, orders of magnitude more powerful than anything the ground arrays could produce, speared down from the heavens. The Chiral fleet, focused on the ground assault, was caught completely by surprise. A cruiser, its shield oriented downwards, was gutted from stem to stern, its spine snapped in two. It broke apart, venting atmosphere, fire, and bodies into the silent deep. Another took a glancing blow that sheared off its entire command section. The invading fleet, a model of imperial power moments before, was thrown into chaos, their orbital superiority obliterated in 3 heartbeats. On the ground, Hestra watched his fleet burn. His rage became a singular, focused point of hatred. The Nexus. He had to destroy the Nexus. His lander, blasted by a near miss from a defensive mirror that had slagged half its armor, screamed from the sky. It crashed through the reinforced roof of the heliostat control nexus. The entire structure groaned, a shriek of tortured metal. The nexus was built on the edge of a deep, sand-filled service canyon. The floor, shattered by the impact, gave way. Jonah and Hestra, along with tons of twisted debris, plummeted into the sandy depths below. Hestra, encased in his command-grade power armor, survived the fall. He pushed himself from the wreckage, dazed, his primary plasma rifle lost. A twisted plate pinned his sidearm, its release mechanism crushed. A spiderweb of cracks radiated from a deep fracture across the helmet's main optical sensor. He was a beast, powerful but clumsy. Jonah, armed with his wits and a lifetime of knowledge about this place, recovered faster. He scrambled from the wreck, his ribs screaming in protest. Hestra finally struggled to his feet, his vision flickering through the cracked faceplate. He saw Jonah, a slight figure in a stained engineer's jumpsuit. He sneered, his voice a distorted rasp over his suit's external speaker.
I will enjoy this. I will grind this monument of glass and your bones into the sand.
Jonah circled him, light on his feet.
This is history.
He shot back, his voice tight with pain and adrenaline.
And your suit's integrity is compromised, Warlord. You've got a pressure leak in your ego.
The fight was primal. Hestra was a bull, charging, his armored fists landing crushing blows that splintered the wreckage. Jonah was a survivor on his home turf. He was faster, smarter. He saw the crack in Hestra's helmet. As Hestra lunged, Jonah ducked, scooped up a handful of Khonsu's coarse, abrasive sand, and jammed it deep into the fracture over the optical sensor. Hestra roared as the grinding sand turned his already compromised view into a screen of pure static. He was blind. He swung wildly, a raging titan. But Jonah was gone. He used leverage, trapping Hestra's flailing arm in a V-shaped crevice in the wreckage. He grabbed a jagged piece of durasteel, a shard from Hestra's own lander, and began to batter the side of the Chiral's helmet, again and again, aiming for the cracked seals around the air supply valve. It was an ugly, desperate, and final duel. Above, in the ruined nexus, chaos reigned. With Jonah gone, the defense coordination faltered. Chiral forces pressed the advantage, sensing a collapse in leadership. Darien, firing a captured plasma repeater from a shattered window, saw the hegemony's reach maneuvering. The flagship moved into a final, brutal position, preparing to unleash a city-killing orbital strike with its main cannon. A countdown timer appeared on a salvaged Chiral tactical display. 5 minutes. He screamed into the comm, his voice raw with desperation.
Amira, the flagship! Hit him in the guts! There's a thermal port in the ventral side just after the command bridge. The softest part of their belly. It has to vent the heat before it fires the main gun.
Amira's voice cut through the comm's chatter panic. Her chant, which had faltered, now rose again, a powerful, unifying crescendo. The rhythm of maximum convergence, the most complex and demanding chant in their liturgy. She called out the targeting verse, a string of poetic-sounding phrases that were, in reality, celestial coordinates. Darien, his hands a blur of motion over a salvaged tactical display, relayed the precise firing solution.
The Abara array. Azimuth 113. The Chen sector. Inclination 0.5. All home plates. All hand mirrors. All scavenged panels. Aim for her heart.
The countdown on the screen hit 60 seconds. The very stones hummed as every mirror in Solhara, on the ground and in orbit, focused. 30 seconds. They focused every watt of power they could gather, every last drop of the sun's fury. They poured it into a single, perfect, soul-shattering beam. 10 seconds. For a moment, a new, brighter sun appeared in the sky above Khonsu. The beam, a silent, incandescent spear, hit home. It struck the flagship's thermal port just as it dilated to vent waste heat. The beam poured directly into the ship's core. The countdown hit 0. The hegemony's Reach reactor overloaded. The massive warship, The pride of the Chiral fleet convulsed. Then it exploded in a silent, brilliant, blossoming flower of fire, its light briefly and violently eclipsing the star it orbited. The sight of their flagship's annihilation, of their warlord's ultimate vessel becoming his funeral pyre, broke the Chiral will to fight. Leaderless, their fleet in ruins, their ground forces decimated, they did the one thing their doctrine forbade. They fled. The battle was over. Jonah, bruised and bleeding but alive, climbed from the wreckage in the canyon. He found Amira and Darien on a high balcony, overlooking the scarred, burning, but stubbornly standing city. The quiet was unnerving, broken only by the crackle of distant fires and the first hesitant cheers rising from the streets below. A nearby console, its screen cracked but functional, flickered to life with a formal communication request. A Galactic Council observership. The message was short, displayed in stark official text. Hostilities have ceased. The Chiral Dominion's claim is nullified. Your sovereignty of Khonsu is hereby recognized. The Dominion will pay reparations for damages. End transmission. Jonah looked at Darien. The smuggler's face was streaked with grime and tears. It was the face of a penitent. He nodded, a silent acceptance of the long, hard road of atonement ahead. Jonah then looked at Amira. She met his gaze with a strength that felt as ancient and enduring as the sun itself. A look that promised they would rebuild, better and stronger. The three of them, the engineer, the poet, and the redeemed sinner, stood together, flawed, broken, and triumphant, as the unblinking sun of the world they had saved shone once more, a promise